reflecting on the teachings from last night, that our samsaric predicament is there's no way to find ultimate happiness or security in it. Then let's have a determination to free ourselves from it, to attain a state of actual peace and inner fulfillment. And even beyond that, to make our lives amazingly meaningful and useful to sentient beings by doing everything with bodhicitta motivation and really dedicating our lives to the welfare of other sentient beings. And to do that, then having to purify our own obstacles, cleanse our own mind, develop our good qualities so we can really be of the ultimate benefit to them. So let's place what we're doing this weekend firmly within the context of being of benefit to society and to all sentient beings. And then let's proceed with a happy mind. Did you turn this on earlier? Because you did. Okay. Okay. So before we start on His Holiness's book, I was thinking a little bit more about the question last night about if you don't believe in rebirth, then should you skip those meditations about birth, aging, sickness, and death? And I thought about it, and I decided, no, they're still good for you to do, because those things are reality. They're going to happen. And whether we believe in rebirth or not, we need to make preparation. So how we make preparation will differ if you think that there's rebirth or not rebirth. But still, we've got to make preparation, okay? Because you can see what happens when people aren't prepared. So just even on a practical level, to have your medical directive and your power of attorney done, to have your will done, so that when you die, you don't have to worry about all that stuff. And also to just, again, whether you believe in rebirth or not, forgive the people you need to forgive and apologize to the people you need to apologize to. Just so when you die, at least you can be peaceful in your mind and not feel like there's a lot of stuff hanging over your head. And, I don't think anybody wants to die with kind of bad feelings and remorse and hatred and bitterness. Yeah. So, no matter what your beliefs about what happens after death, we still need to take care of those kinds of things. Yeah. And we still need to diminish our attachment. Even if there's nothing after this life, if we die with attachment, it's going to be really unpleasant dying, because we're going to cling to our bodies and friends and relatives and possessions and whole ego identity. Yeah. So even, you don't care about future lives, at least prepare to have a peaceful death, and try and diminish attachment to worldly things. Don't you think that's wise? Yeah? So I think still very, very good to think about that. And same about old age. Yeah? Think, what kind of old person do you want to be? Yeah? Do you want to be a bitter old person who just, stores all the things that happen to you in your life? Because life knocks us around, doesn't it? And we all have things that, broken trust and people doing nasty things to us, or we think they did nasty things to us anyway, and we hold on to stuff. And, you get old and you're bitter. And your whole life, your whole age is just feeling angry at the world. Okay? So, do you want to become that kind of old person when you die? No, thank you. Yeah? So again, just even thinking just this life's happiness, it's worthwhile to learn about how to let go of our anger, how to get rid of our pride so we can apologize, so we can forgive. Huh? So it makes a lot of sense anyway. And same with sickness, we're all going to get sick. So how do we want to be when we're sick? Do all we want to do is complain? Yeah? Because we know some sick people, some old people, all they do, you call them on the phone, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm feeling awful. Oh, this is, and they repeat what the doctor said 15 times. And they repeat what the doctor said, but they aren't following the doctor's instructions. Is that the kind of old person we want to be? Is that the kind of sick person we want to be? Yeah? Or do we want to, when we're sick, just to be able to accept it? Okay, this body's ill, let's just relax, do what I need to do to get well. Yeah? Okay, so these kinds of things to think about pertain whether you believe in rebirth or don't believe in rebirth. Okay? The teachings that we had last night were specifically designed to encourage us to want to get out of the cycle of birth and death, assuming that we believe in rebirth already. But still, they're useful even if you don't. What do you think? Yeah? Because that was your question. Okay. So, then just a little bit more, because like I said, where we are in this book, we're diving right into the middle of the emptiness meditation that, needs a little bit of, prelude here. Yeah. Because they always talk about, before meditating on emptiness, it's very important to have a very robust idea of cause and effect, knowing that our actions have an ethical dimension. They produce effects. They don't just kind of vanish into thin air, and then what happens to us in the future is purely, coincidental or random or whatever, but rather we create the causes for what we're going to experience. And so, I remember as a kid asking myself, why was I born me? Why wasn't I born somebody in another country, with another family? And did you ever wonder about that, why you're born you? Yeah? And so, of course, I could never get any kind of good answer. I asked various religious people in the community where I grew up, but, I couldn't, the answers they gave me just didn't ring true for me. And then when I heard about karma, and it was like, oh, yeah, because it's about cause and effect. Yeah, it's not about randomness. It's not about the will of some other guy who's supposed to be compassionate, but who doesn't seem very compassionate. Yeah? And so, it's like, my actions create causes. I experience the results. And the more I began to look at my life, and see, the tremendous good fortune I had and have in this life, and think, boy, whoever I was in a previous life really worked hard and did something good. Yeah, I better not blow it. And then also looking at how I'm acting now and thinking I'm creating the cause for what I'm going to be in the future, and like, uh-oh, because when I started looking at my motivations, at my actions, my ethical conduct was, how do I put it? Well, you get the idea. It wasn't so good. It was, my ethical conduct was, if I want to do it, then it must be virtuous. Yeah. And if other people do the same thing, then it's non-virtuous. Okay? So if I, steal or lie or sleep around or whatever, that's okay. But when other people do it, it's not okay. Yeah. And I realized that, I was very critical of like all these politicians that were so hypocritical, and all these people who go to church on Sunday that were so hypocritical. And then I found out that I was just like them. Yeah, it was rather a shock. And, and I realized I had to kind of, walk the talk or talk the walk or whatever it is. I had to change and get get my behavior in line with what I believe. And, because it does create your experiences in the future. And I really see that with the guys that I work with in prison. And some of you here have helped with our prison outreach, and I'm sure you see it too, that, when you're not thinking clearly, when your mind is overwhelmed by attachment or overwhelmed by anger, you make unwise choices. And especially if you belong to a minority group, that unwise choice is much more dangerous because you're much more likely to get arrested. And so even in this life, then you fall in a pit of snakes, let alone for future lives. Yeah. And the one guy that, the one who, you remember we talked about it with the non-negotiables. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Bo. Yeah. So this is a guy who was a fantastic businessman, made huge profits. The thing, though, that he was a businessman in was drugs. So he very obviously had some strong business acumen, but he didn't use it wisely. And he was a big drug dealer in Southern California. He left the country because something wasn't going well, but he decided to come back and do one more big run. And he got busted, got a 20-year prison sentence. He was in his early 30s at the time. And this just blew him away, 20 years when you're early 30s, and you're not going to get out until your 50s. And then all of his buddies kind of abandoned him because he was in prison, and the people who were supposed to help him no longer helped him, and they cheated him. And he started looking back at his life and watching the whole chain of events that led him to getting busted. And, of course, that led to drug dealing and, everything before that. And as he traced it back, he began to see that even when he was 8 years old, decisions he made, on how to deliver papers on his paper route, changed his mind in a certain way that gave him permission to do other things later on, that then gave him permission and put him in situations where he did other things. And he wrote this whole thing about causes and consequences, realizing, that he was in the predicament he was in because of his own actions. Yeah. And he began to, of course, take responsibility at that point, which completely changed his life around. But this is the very idea of karma, that things are not random. Yeah, and they're not pre-programmed, and they're not, some creator being manager of the universe doesn't make them happen. But we're the ones who create the cause for our own experience. Yeah, and so to really have a deep understanding of that and of cause and effect is very important before we start investigating how things really exist. Yeah, because when we investigate how things really exist, if we go to an extreme, we come out nihilistic and negate cause and effect. If we negate cause and effect, then we're in big trouble. Yeah, not only karmically, but also if you negate cause and effect in your own life because you think nothing exists, then how are you going to live your life? If you don't think causes bring effects, why do you eat breakfast? We usually eat breakfast to reduce hunger and to keep our body alive. But if there's no cause and effect, then eating breakfast isn't going to reduce your hunger and it's not going to keep you alive. So why do it? Stupid. Yeah, isn't that a stupid way of thinking? Yeah, it's like everybody knows that you have to eat to stay alive. Let's not go to extremes. So similarly, on an ethical way, a moral way, let's not go to the extreme of, well, I can do whatever I want as long as I don't get caught, which was my byline when I was younger. As long as I don't get caught, it's okay. Yeah, which is a really stupid way of thinking because whether you get caught in this life or not, we're putting seeds on our mind stream that will ripen and influence what we become and what happens to us. Yeah, so to, really have that understanding and confidence in cause and effect and use that to help us live our life so that we feel good about how we're living our life. I think that's what ethical conduct boils down to, Of course, it creates the causes for what we're going to become. And it creates merit and it enables us to attain liberation and awakening. And, ethical conduct is indispensable for those. But just even to be happy this life, ethical conduct is important. Yeah? Because if we don't live ethically, then we go around feeling guilty all the time. Yeah? Who wants to live a life feeling guilty? Okay. So the Jews and the Catholics, we know what it's like to feel guilty. Yeah? And we don't want to continue, living a life where, your whole life is formed around guilt. Yeah. So, good way to avoid guilt, don't do things that you would regret for, you have regret for. Okay? Or if you've done things, purify them, make amends, fix them up. Yeah? And learn, let's learn from our mistakes and, make good choices and be wise in the future. Okay, then we, when you go to bed, you feel peaceful. Yeah? Whereas when we act in unethical ways and we lie and we cheat and we do all sorts of stuff, then when you go to bed, you may say, oh, I pulled a good one on someone. Aren't I clever? But in the bottom of your heart, it's like, what kind of person am I that I act like that? So, we can, as they say, pull the wool over a lot of people's eyes, but we can't pull the wool over our own internal sense of conscientiousness. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, what's important is not whether people praise us and approve of us, but whether we feel at peace with our own actions. Don't you think that's more important? Yeah? People can praise you up, down, and across, but if we don't feel good about ourselves, their praise doesn't do anything to help us. Yeah? If we feel good about our own actions, or even we've made mistakes, because we all have, if we fixed them up and we've learned from them, then we can, there's a feeling of confidence in our mind. So I think it behooves us to pay attention to this. Okay, then another little bit of a prelude before we start dissecting who we are is, again, in our ordinary life, do you sometimes find yourself in situations where you wish you would get out of your own way? Yeah? Like you're doing something and one part of your mind is saying, this is ridiculous. Why in the world am I doing this? Have you had that happen to you? Yeah? And you keep on doing it anyway? Yeah? Or you're a parent and you vowed never to talk to your children the way your parents talk to you, and there it is coming out of your mouth, your mother and your father, and you're horrified, and you keep saying it. Yeah? Okay, so we've had those kind of experiences. Or another example is we're doing something really with a loving mind, with a very pure motivation for somebody else's happiness, and then a thought comes in our mind of, I'm going to get some extra credit for this. People are going to like me because I do this. People are going to think well of me. Yeah, this person will feel obliged to me. So here you had this wonderful, beautiful motivation, and then this stinky thought comes in that I'm going to get some extra credit, some benefit for myself. Okay, so we've had that happen, yeah? So what is the thought lying behind all these kinds of situations where we're doing stuff or thinking stuff that we really doesn't serve our own benefit, let alone the benefit of others, Isn't it what lies behind this, some attachment to me? Yeah, some thought that I'm really important, I really exist. I'm this big fat thing that the world should revolve around. Yeah, I am I. Kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, this is how our I presents itself in the world with, the flashing and I am the Wizard of Oz. I am me, world, listen. That kind of thought lies behind all this kind of junk that we do or we think or whatever. Have we ever asked ourselves exactly who or what is that I? Yeah. There's that thought, me. I exist. I am here. I am the center of the universe and I deserve happiness. But have we ever stopped to ask ourselves just exactly what or who that I is? Have you? You know, maybe a few people have. Many people haven't. We just take it for granted. There's me. And that idea of me motivates everything we do and lies behind everything we do. And it's the whole structure, the whole veil, the whole perspective through which we see the world is through this thought that there's a real me here. Definitely. Me. Yeah. And there's me, and then there's the rest of the world. Yeah. Me, internal, objective, rest of the world out there. And then then our whole life revolves around, well, how can I get from the rest of the world what makes me happy? And how can I be free from the parts of the world that make me unhappy? And then that becomes basically what we do all day and all night, is advance our own happiness and destroy or avoid whatever causes us unhappiness or grief. Yeah? And we never succeed in finding the ultimate happiness. It's never there. And in the meantime, we keep doing all these things. And here's where some of the guilt comes in and the remorse, because we're doing things that we don't really agree with inside of our own self. But this thought of I, an attachment to I, an anger that anything that impinges on my happiness, we just follow that thought, like it's like we're donkeys with a ring in our nose, and the donkey driver, donkey owner pulls the string with the ring, and the donkey has no choice and follows, and we just follow that thought of I, in all the different ways it comes up. So it's very helpful, to start asking ourselves exactly who is that I? Yeah, a belief in I underlies my whole life. But exactly what is that I? And is my belief in I a correct belief? Or do I have some kind of skewed idea of what and who I am, and that skewed idea makes me do things that are self-sabotaging? Okay? So here's where it starts to be very useful to look and say, okay, well, how do I think of I? And, or me? And do I really exist in the way that I think I exist? Because we all feel like we're real, don't we? Yeah. Sometimes in psychology they say, people who are in psychology who get into Buddhism, you have to have an I before you can meditate on emptiness and destroy your I. And so they say, okay, psychologically you have to build up this feeling of I first. Actually, even when we lack self-confidence, have low self-esteem, all of that, there's still a very big sense of I. Yeah, very big, isn't there? Yeah. In fact, sometimes our sense of I is even larger when we're in a fit of self-loathing. Yeah? Don't you think? Yeah? Because when we get really down on ourselves, okay, psychologically it's not healthy, and psychologically speaking, you have to get rid of that. But from a Buddhist viewpoint, there's a very concrete idea of me. I do everything wrong. I made this mistake. There's something inherently, intrinsically defective about me. I'm never going to make it. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. Every other sentient being on this planet is lovable, but not me. Every other sentient being has 84,000 afflictions. I have 84,003. Something is, I'm the most inferior. Yeah? There's a pretty big sense of I there, isn't there? Yeah, there's a huge sense of I that so fills the environment that we can't see anything clearly at all. When we get into that, I hate myself, I can't do anything right mood. Mm-hmm. Okay, so all of that may give us some kind of impetus to look at what His Holiness is going to talk about now. How do I think I exist, and do I really exist in that way? Okay, so I'll read from the book and then comment on it from time to time. Okay, so it's chapter 10, Meditating on Yourself First. Okay, and there's a quotation from the Buddha that says, "Through one all are known, through one all are also seen." Then His Holiness says, "Since it is the individual person who undergoes pleasure and pain, makes trouble and accumulates karma, all the noise and the mess being made by the self, because of all of that, analysis should begin with yourself. Then, when you understand that this person is without inherent existence, you can extend this realization to the things that you enjoy, undergo, and make use of. In this sense, the person is principle." Okay, so start out and analyze how we exist. This is why Nagarjuna first presents the selflessness of persons and then uses it as an example for the selflessness of phenomena. And in his precious garland of advice, which the Thursday night class is on, he says, "A person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness, and not all of them. What person is there other than these? Just as due to being set up in dependence upon an aggregation of the six constituents, a person is not established as its own reality, so too, being set up in dependence upon an aggregation, each of the constituents also is not established as its own reality." So His Holiness gives a short commentary and then I'll unpack it. He says, just as a person does not inherently exist because he or she is dependent upon a collection of the six constituents. Okay, six constituents: earth, or the quality of hardness, the hard substances in the body; water, okay, fluid; fire is heat; wind is movement; and space is the hollow parts in the body. So those are the five physical, constituents, physical elements. And then the sixth one is consciousness. Okay, that part of us that is clear and cognizant, that feels, experiences, perceives, knows. Okay, that part of us. So a person is dependent on the collection of these 6. So it is that each of the constituents also does not inherently exist, because it in turn is set up in dependence upon its own parts. Okay, let's go back to this initial quotation from Nagarjuna. Yeah. So often when we have the idea of me, there's the feeling that I'm my body. Yeah, very often. It's an unclear feeling, because sometimes we think I'm my body, and sometimes we feel like we're the owner of the body. We go back and forth, because sometimes I say, like if my finger hurts, I say, I'm in pain. Or I might say, my finger hurts. In the first one, I'm kind of I'm feeling like I'm the body. In the second one, I'm separate. I'm like the owner of the body. Yeah, my finger hurts. Yeah. So even how we look at our body isn't totally clear. We don't always see ourselves as the body. We don't always see ourselves as the owner of the body. We go back and forth between those. Okay? But in either case, are we our body? Okay. Now, if we feel, yes, this is me, especially at the time of death, it's like, I don't want to be separated from this, because this is the basis upon which my whole identity is formed. Then we have to ask ourselves, if we feel I'm my body, then which part of my body am I? Yeah. Am I the hard stuff in my body? Am I the liquids in my body? The heat in the body? The movement in the body? The space in the body? In other words, am I earth, water, fire, wind, space, these physical elements? When you look and you isolate each element, do you feel like that's who you are? No. No. Or even you analyze it in a different way and you break the body into parts. 2 arms, 2 legs, stomachs, intestine, a head, all these different things. When you feel like this is me, but then you start asking yourself, well, exactly which part is me? Okay. I don't think many of us think we're our little fingers, Okay. So what part, when you start analyzing your body, do you feel is you? Are your lungs you? Maybe your liver? Your heart? Your eyes. Are your eyes you? Put 2 eyeballs out there and there's a person? Okay. What about your brain? Do you think your brain is who you are? If your brain is who you are, if a brain is the person, then we've all loved people, right? Then here's our loved one's brain. Oh, I love you so much. Brain, you're so beautiful. You're so gorgeous. I love you. Really? Are you going to do that for your loved one? Do you love your loved one's brain? Do you really think the brain is who the person is? Look at those gray folds. They're so beautiful. Those electrical synapses are so intelligent, so creative. that dopamine, that serotonin. It makes my heart twitter. Or flitter, or whatever your heart's supposed to do. Flutter. That's it. I was never very good at that stuff. Yeah. But you get what I mean. When it comes down to it, we really don't think the brain is the person. Yeah? Do you? If you feel that your loved one is their brain, yeah, then when they say to you, I love you, then in order to really know that they love us, you're going to have to conduct a bunch of scientific tests. Because you can't just, first of all, the brain can't talk. But, even the brain expresses that. You can't believe it. If you're a scientific reductionist and that person is their brain, then, they say, I love you. Okay, what's your galvanic skin response? What's the area of your brain that's lit up when you say this? I'm only going to believe that you love me after I decorate you with one of the caps and do an EEG. EEG? EKG? EEG. EKG is this one. Okay. Or if you think the person's their heart, then maybe you have to do an EKG. Yeah. Okay, so we really don't think. Yeah? I mean, what do you think? Do you think you're your brain? Okay, then not consciousness. That one's a little bit harder, isn't it? Yeah? Maybe I'm my consciousness. Maybe the person I love is their mind, their consciousness. Okay. Then take your loved one's consciousness, put it in a different body. Yeah? Put it in the body of someone of the opposite sex from what they are now, and make that body 90 years old. Or make that body 3 years old. Do you still have the same feeling that the mind is the person, the consciousness is the person? That's harder, isn't it? That's harder. Okay, then we get another alternative. Okay, those 6 haven't worked. The other one is maybe it's all of them together. You put the body and the mind together. Yeah, that's who the person is. Okay. Now the problem with that is that none of the parts of the body is the person, and the mind isn't the person. So how do you put together a group of things that are individually not the person, put them together, and then you get a person out of it? That's like putting together a group of things that are oranges, and you get an apple. A bunch of non-persons come together, and out of that comes some truly existent big me. That doesn't work either, does it? We're not really the collection of our parts. Yeah, we're not really that, because none of them individually are us. So how does putting them together make us? And we're also not something totally separate from that combination of body and mind either. Because if we were totally separate, body and mind could be here, we could be across the room. That doesn't work either. Okay. So somehow our notion, which is holiness, of who we are, which is holiness, is going to get us to explore some more. This feeling that we're some real person, concrete here. I am I exist. I deserve happiness. Somehow, our notion of what that I is a little bit confused. Because if there were this big I that was so easily identifiable, that feels like it's in control or should be in control, if such a person existed, we should be able to find it. And yet, when we look, we can't find it inside the body and mind, and we can't find the I outside the body and mind. So the kind of I that we assume we are, this independent controller I, we can't find it anywhere. So what kind of conclusion can you draw from that? Yeah. We were told there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. You look all over Iraq, under every piece of sand, in this bunker, in that bunker, in this building, in that building. You cannot find one weapon of mass destruction. What is your conclusion? There aren't any. When we think that there's some big independent I, but we can't find it either in the body-mind or separate from the body and mind, what conclusion do we draw? It's not there. Okay. That doesn't mean that there's no I whatsoever. It means that that big independent one, that one that, is in control, or at least should be in control, yeah, that is the one that doesn't exist. Doesn't mean there's no person. Okay? But when we begin to think that that person doesn't exist the way I think I exist, it begins to change our feeling about who we are. If there's no big fat me that's an independent person, then why do I need to be the best? Yeah? If there's no big fat me that's the person, why do I need approval? Yeah? In other words, if the person as we're conceiving ourselves to exist doesn't exist, then all the behavior and things that we think we need to get to please that person, it doesn't need to happen. Yeah. Now, if suddenly you were to drop the idea that I need to be the best and to excel, and be recognized by whoever I'm trying to impress that I'm the best. If you drop that idea, how would you feel? Relief, calm, free, very open, huh? Relaxed. Yeah.
Afraid.
Not afraid. What?
I think your energy would shift instead of the
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of like, you know, then everything's just relaxed and there's so much more energy available. And we don't need to prove ourselves to anybody. We can still excel. It doesn't mean we become lazy. We can still do things, very beautifully and be creative. But we don't have to we aren't driven in the same way. And we don't have to be recognized for it. And we don't need to defend it. And we don't need to impress anybody. Okay? So there's a lot of freedom that comes. Okay? That's what we're getting at. Okay. Then the second verse that Nagarjuna said here. So the first verse was talking about ourselves as a person, how there's no independent, concrete person there. The second verse is saying, just as there's no independent person there, the body, the mind, everything else also doesn't exist as nothing exists as an independent object with its own essence. Okay, so what's something beautiful and gorgeous and expensive? My Rolex watch. Okay, my Rolex watch. You see, Okay. So what is my Rolex watch? Yeah, it's a bunch of parts, isn't it? I don't even know what the inside of digital watches look like anymore, But yeah, like there's chips inside, there's, a display, there's, what makes the Rolex watch so beautiful? Is it the chips inside? Is it the display? Is it the fact that there's a gold band? Okay, and the gold around the outside. And maybe how many dials you have. Yeah? People like to have those watches with so many dials. You can tell the barometer, you can tell the humidity, you can tell all these things, I guess that's really important to know every day with the, But, you can have all these things, more dials, more expensive, really beautiful watch. All it is a bunch of parts, a bunch of elements, isn't it? Yeah? Just a bunch of give it to your kid for a while and let your kid play with your Rolex watch. And then you'll see what it really is, because your kid will take it apart. Yeah? Your 5-year-old will take it apart to see and have all the parts there. And then you get to come and see, look what my Rolex watch is. Yeah? It's all these parts. It's a big mess. Yeah? And then you go, oh, what was it in there to start with that I thought was so attractive and so meaningful, that I had to have it because having it gave me status. If you took all those same parts, put them in a plastic bag and attach that to your wrist, are people going to think that you're really high status because of your watch? It's the same parts. Okay. So what was there in that watch? First of all, that even makes it a watch. And second of all, that makes it something that's going to, get you some extra credit. There's nothing. Isn't there? There's nothing. Just a bunch of parts, bunch of junk. Yeah. So, when you realize that, then if somebody takes your watch, or it breaks, or it gets scratched, or whatever, or somebody else has a nicer one, yeah, how are you going to feel if you realize what the real nature of this watch is? Yeah, how do you feel when? Yeah, you're okay. It's just, you let go of your desire, it's, so what? So that brings a lot of freedom, doesn't it? Yeah, a lot of freedom. So again, it doesn't mean there's no watch there, because you put the parts together and you can use it to tell time. Yeah, but you can also use some cheap thing to tell time too. Yeah. And what makes one a status symbol and the other not a status symbol? Is it that gold is inherently, classy and plastic isn't? No, it's simply our mind. Our mind says, oh, gold is classy, plastic isn't. There's nothing intrinsic in either of the substances that makes it good or bad. And it's our mind that says, oh, if you wear gold, you must be da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and a whole list of attributes for the person who wears gold. And if you don't wear gold, if you have some old blessing cord from how many years ago, instead, it's just our mind that says something is valuable or not valuable. It's not the thing itself. So it gives you a lot of space. Yeah, you don't have to drive a red sports car. You can drive an old whatever. The purpose is to get from one place to the other. Okay, so that's kind of freeing, isn't it? And isn't it also kind of freeing when you don't have to, when you shut down that part of your mind that judges and evaluates other people by their possessions or by their appearance? Isn't that kind of freeing? Yeah? When that part of the mind isn't going, well, what kind of car do they drive? What kind of watch do they have? Yeah. What kind of glasses do they have? Because everybody now has to have the style glasses that are the in kind of glasses. If you're someone who just uses the same old frames for the last 20 years, even though your prescription gets higher and higher. Yeah. But if you get new glasses, the style, the big, ugly black ones that are in, they're the in glasses now, aren't they? The big, ugly black ones that everybody wants to have because of what everybody else has. And they're so ugly. Oh, I'm sorry to whoever is wearing them. But but it's true, isn't it? Anyway, it's such a relief when we don't have to worry about what kind of glasses we wear, or what kind of watch we have, or what kind of car we drive. It's just, yeah, that's gone. I mean, this is one reason why monastics have a certain lifestyle. It's like you give that stuff up, okay? So it's actually quite relieving when we don't have to judge people, or when we cease judging people. We never had to do it in the first place, but when we cease the discriminating mind that judges people according to what they have, or what they look like, or how old they are, or what race they are, or any of the ways that our ridiculous mind thinks to divide us and discriminate against each other. Isn't it a kind of a relief to just, your mind just doesn't do that anymore? Yeah? That whoever steps in front of you, it's like, it doesn't matter what they look like, you know? There's just some person there who's going to change what they look like anyway. But there's not any solid, real person there to put all of our opinions on to start with. Yeah? Very relieving. So His Holiness says, examples are easier to understand than what they exemplify. Buddha speaks to this in the King of Meditation Sutra. So he says, just as you come to know the false discrimination of yourself, apply this mentally to all phenomena. All phenomena are completely devoid of their own inherent existence, like space. Through one, all are known. Through one, all are seen. Okay. When we know well, this is His Holiness now, when we know well how the I really is, you can understand all internal and external phenomena using the same reasoning. Seeing how one phenomena, yourself, exists, you can also know the nature of all other phenomena. This is why the procedure for meditation is first to strive to generate realization of your own lack of inherent existence, and then to work at realizing the same with respect to other phenomena. And then he gives a reflection. Okay? So consider, 1, the person is at the center of all troubles. Yeah. 2, therefore, it is best to work at understanding your true nature first. 3, after that, this realization can be applied to mind, body, house, car, money, and all other phenomena. Okay? Let's pause here before I go on. Are there questions so far? Mm-hmm.
You said there's no I, but you said there's still, it does not mean there's no person.
Yeah. There's no independent I, but there is an I. Okay? There's a difference between just the conventionally existent I or person and the independent or inherently existent I or person. Okay? The inherently or independent one that doesn't actually exist and never has, but that we think exists, that one is the big fat one. That's me, I'm in control, I want. Okay. The other one is one that exists simply by being designated by mind. Okay? So on the basis of a combination of body and mind, we give a name. You know, that's Sam, that's Susan. Okay? There's nothing in the body or mind that's Sam or Susan. But we say, there's Sam, there's Susan, there's people there. When we vote, Sam and Susan raise their hand and they vote. Okay? So they exist, but they exist simply because they've been designated by mind, not because from their own side there's some independent, inherent nature that makes them what they are. Okay?
Haven't you commented before to get the idea that this inherent I, using examples like when you've been insulted or
Yeah.
somebody says you are wrong,
Yeah.
you go, ugh, and then it goes,
Yeah.
that's what doesn't exist? Is that
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, one of the hard ones for me is the overcoming the belief that the aggregates as a whole constitute the I.
Yeah.
And what I found was very helpful, I think it was one of your teachers that said this: if you cut off the finger, are you still you? Okay. Well, if you cut off your hand, you still have that sense of I. And if you cut off more and more, what sense does that sense of I go away?
Yeah.
Which part, or which collections of parts are the I?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And that's when you see there's a collection there, but none of the parts individually or the whole collection can be the person. Yeah.
Dado said something about the collection that really struck me. Is the collection is the most dependent because it's dependent on all those parts. You remove one, you have a different collection.
Yeah. Yeah, because the collection, you can easily see a collection is not one thing. Yeah? You can easily see that it's a pile of different things. Or put it that way, it's easier. Yeah. When you look out at the forest, it's fairly easy to see that the forest is a collection of trees. Yeah. We look at the book and we see one thing, but actually it doesn't take too much to see that actually the book is a collection of pages. Okay? And nowhere in this collection of pages are you going to find a book. Yeah? Can you find a book in here? There's a book. There's a book on the table. There's not a book in this. Yeah, there's a book on the table. There's not a book in the collection of pages.
But there are chapters in the book.
Yeah? So?
Chapter is not a book.
Yeah, chapter's not a book. And a page isn't a book. But you put them all together in a certain arrangement, and our mind gives it the name book, then you have a book. Okay? Without putting them together in a certain arrangement, and without our mind giving it the name book, then you're not going to have one. Yeah? Uh-huh.
Would that also be true for the Buddha, for example, or without our mind
Yeah.
saying that? I mean, because like you were saying, how we, when we impute value on things like, for example, wants it don't exist inherently, but clearly there are some things in a conventional sense that have value. Otherwise, why would we venerate images of the Buddha or so on?
Well, again, all these things, they're given value by our mind. The Buddha, too, doesn't inherently exist. Nagarjuna, in chapter 18, I think it is, of his fundamental wisdom, he negates the inherent existence of the Buddha. Yeah? Saying there's no Tathagata there in the body and mind. But there is a Tathagata there because that's, been designated. And the Buddha's qualities, it's not that those qualities are there inside the Buddha independent of everything else. The Buddha cannot have the quality of, let's say, compassion without there being sentient beings to have compassion for. So the Buddha has compassion, but that compassion exists in relationship to sentient beings. It's not compassion sitting out there inside the Buddha, and we unzip the Buddha and open it up and then there's compassion inside. Not like that. Yeah. All these things exist dependent on other things. Yeah. And when you really think about it, it's quite remarkable. It's easy to say, yes, everything's dependent on everything else, but it's really something when you really think about that, and what that means. It's really, our whole world is constructed where everything is labeled and has a function in relationship to other things. Nothing has its own identity or its own function in and of itself. It only has that identity or that function because of the things around it. Yeah?
Geshe Kelsang Damdul gave us a way to think about what you just said. So, and I found it helpful when I walk into a new situation, then just quickly saying, now I'm this. And you start seeing how the I shifts and depends. It's not a separate I coming into a situation. It's like, now I'm this. I'm like this with this, all dependent on all these things. Then I go to the kitchen, now I'm like that. Now I'm, and it starts loosening it, at least for me.
Yeah. That there's no concrete person that's going through all these different actions. Yeah.
But dependent on, I can't be here without all this. How could I be here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, quite helpful.
Yeah.
But isn't it more a verb than a noun?
Isn't what more of a verb?
Aren't we talking about process here? We're just not, relationship, but it's always action. It's always something happening.
Yeah, but they are nouns. I mean, what specifically are you talking about? I mean, a person is a noun, a person is a thing. Yeah, but the way we think of thing is different than how it actually is.
But does it,
A person is made up of all these parts that are continually changing, and the person themselves is continually changing. Yeah, that's the impermanence of the person. Yeah, but within all that whole continually changing flux, accumulation of different things that are flux, there's nothing independent that hooks one moment to the next moment. Yeah, sometimes we have a feeling like, yeah, everything's changing. But there's still something that doesn't change that connects all those moments together. There isn't. Yeah.
So in her question there, I'm wondering if there's only an object, not a process. There is a process, all that change, but you designate the object.
Yeah.
Rather than an object.
Yeah.
Because it really seems like there's just a bunch of flux.
Yeah. But whether we call flux or we call object, both of those terms are imputed to and conceptualized. Yeah. So by saying object, again, object doesn't mean it's concrete and permanent and solid and having its own essence.
Because what happens is when I try to talk about it as a flux, it seems like it's always changing, and then when I use the word object, that's the moment where I concretize.
Right. But that's our mind that puts all that stuff on top of it. Yeah. Because flux actually is a noun too, isn't it? No. Flux, there's a flux of things. Yeah. You don't say things are fluxing. Flux is a noun. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about how I've heard the continuum of body, the continuum of mind, the continuum of the eye. And so I think sometimes thinking of a continuum makes it seem like there is something that is connected to
Right.
everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And see, this is when we use words, as soon as we use a word, we put stuff on top of that and imbue it with, then there's something really there. Okay. We're the ones that gave something the term, the name. But then we forget that, and we think that the name and the meaning and the value is all coming from its side. But all of that came from us putting it on.
So would that mean that we found words to
Yeah,
All the stories.
a continuum is simply a series of mind moments. That's all. And you put the series, like a bunch of pages, you put them together and you give them the name book. The mind stream, bunch of mind moments. You look at them in a certain way. You say mind stream.
Oh, that's helpful, the example of the book you just gave us.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But we put the name on something,
Mm-hmm.
and we are working to accept that there is no we and no I.
Mm-hmm.
That confuses me.
Okay. Again, it's the thing. There's no independent me that puts the name. But there is a me that exists dependently. Yeah. So we're negating the independent me, but we're not negating the dependent me. Okay? An example I give, this is only an example, but if, let's say you were born with sunglasses, okay? You came out of the womb with sunglasses. Everything appears dark to you, okay? Do you realize that things are not dark like they appear to you? No. You think that what is appearing to you is how they exist. Everything is dark. Yeah. When you start to question this and maybe, go like this a little bit and begin to see, oh, maybe things aren't dark the way I think they are. Yeah. You're negating the dark objects. You're not negating the thing altogether. Okay? So if I think there is a tree that is, inherent, there's an inherently brown tree because that's what I see through my glasses. That an inherently brown tree does not exist. A tree that's green does exist. Okay. But when I live my life thinking there's an inherently brown tree, I get into a lot of problems because I'm not seeing it as it is. Okay? This is just an example to show that things do not exist as they appear. They often use in the scriptures the example of a reflection. Yeah, I think TV is a really good example. Yeah, when you look at a TV screen, yeah, there's people in it, aren't there? Yeah, don't you relate on a gut level to, there's the people on the screen. They're right there. Yeah, and so says this, and you feel this, and so says that, and you feel something else. Yeah, I mean, we react to the TV screen as if there's real people in front of us. Yeah? Are there real people in that screen? No. Okay. Is there an appearance of real people? Yeah, there's an appearance. But is that appearance real people? No. Okay? Same thing with the reflection in the mirror. You look in the mirror, and babies or kitties when they're real young, they wise up too, like babies. They think, oh, there's another kitty in the mirror, I want to play with it. Or there's another baby in the mirror, I want to play with it. Yeah? Is there a baby or a kitty in the mirror? No. Okay. There's an appearance of one. Yeah, the appearance exists. The appearance performs a function. We use the reflection in the mirror, to kind of look and, kind of, oh gee, if I didn't have these wrinkles, how would I look? Um, you know, when you were younger, you used to go, oh, if I didn't have this zit, it would be, you know. Now, it changes as you grow older. But, you know, same kind of thing. Yeah, the reflection functions, but it's not a real person. Okay? Yeah.
About the continuum of moment to moment. At a very subtle level, I understand moment to moment. But are those moments themselves made of parts?
Yes.
And is it infinite regress like that? So that the moments that are making up the moments are also made of moments?
Yes, yes. And that's why, you know, you can't pinpoint any solid concrete thing, because any moment has a beginning part, a middle part, and an end part. So you usually say, oh, well, it's got to be the middle part that's the moment. But that middle part also has an earlier part and a later part. Okay. It's very interesting when you do this in your meditation. Try and find a moment of mind or find a moment of something. It's like, you know, you're grasping, but you can't get it. Yeah.
I think that's the most important part. Is we can sit here and intellectually understand what you're saying, but it really becomes useful when we understand it like as part of our life.
Yeah.
So in the moment when I'm yelling at the dog, you know, I realize, you know, oh, you know, there's no inherently existing dog that inherently pooped on the carpet, you know.
Yeah.
And there's no inherently existing me who's in control of this environment, who can blame the dog and make the dog responsible for doing a normal dog thing. Those are the moments when this stuff really.
Right.
But they only comes when you sit there and do exactly what you just said. Spend a lot of time on the cushion trying to find the moment inside the moment inside the moment. And
Yeah.
think yourself crazy. You have to make yourselves crazy with this stuff because we're doing it all the time, only we don't know if we're making ourselves crazy with it.
Yeah. Yeah.